good morning, good afternoon, and happy Friday to in-house counsel from all across North America. Welcome to In-House Connect. My name is Shai Mahani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of In-House Connect, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today on this beautiful Friday afternoon or morning. Thank you for spending your breakfast time or lunchtime with us, and special thanks to today's sponsor, Axiom, and our fantastic presenter, Wendi Weiner. She is the writing guru. She is fantastic, and we are so fortunate to have her with us today. For those of you who are here for the first time, let me give you a quick bit of background. In-House Connect started 11 years ago as a New York City-based meetup group for in-house counsel. Every month, In-House Connect would organize free CLE classes, which were followed by cocktail networking receptions. And every 6 months, we would organize fun and festive networking mixers. Over the years, we've helped thousands of in-house counsel connect with peers and outside counsel alike. The group was humming along, and then COVID hit. We couldn't meet in person, so we went online, which has been a fantastic transition. We've been able to attract a much larger audience of in-house counsel, truly from coast to coast, and we've been able to feature high caliber speakers like the one we have today, who I'm going to introduce in just a moment. This is our 16th event of the year, and I wanted to take a poll of the audience. Have you attended our events in the past? Let me know. I'm curious to learn more. Today's event is LinkedIn for in-house counsel, and our presenter today is Wendi Weiner. Wendi Weiner is an attorney and career expert who has been featured in over 75 media outlets as an authority in personal branding, LinkedIn storytelling, career strategy, and the job search process. Under her namesake company, The Writing Guru, Wendi creates powerful career and personal brands for senior level attorneys, executives, C-suite, and board leaders for their job search and digital footprint. She also provides corporate branding services to Fortune 25 companies and writes for major publications, including Above the Law, CNBC, The Ladders, and Thrive Global. We are so lucky to have Wendi on to teach us how to leverage LinkedIn to grow our personal brand and achieve visibility for career success. So with that, I'll turn things over to Wendi.
Thanks so much for having me, Shai, and super excited to be here. So sorry. A little quick on the mouse. So a little bit about me. I know Shai did a great job of introducing me, but I also like to introduce you to what I did as a lawyer and kind of a little bit more about resume writing and LinkedIn profile writing. Today's session is obviously going to be totally focused on LinkedIn profile writing, but I actually was an in-house counsel at 2 insurance companies. One was a Fortune 200, and I worked both in big law and for boutique firms for 12 years. I left the practice of law formally in 2015. I hold 6 certifications in resume writing, LinkedIn profile writing, career transition coaching, and personal branding. And I'm also the past ethics chair and board member for the Resume Writers Association. My sweet spot of clients is actually very senior law firm partners looking to go in-house, as well as mostly GCs and CLOs. And the rest of my corporate counsel clients are typically assistant GCs or deputy GCs. And I also work with CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, and a lot of tech executives and healthcare executives as well. So let's dive into the power of LinkedIn. Everyone is here today because you realize just how much LinkedIn has evolved in the last several years. And in fact, when I left the practice of law in 2015, it was a completely different scenario. LinkedIn was more of just, copy and paste your resume, throw it into your profile. There wasn't this platform for content creators, content marketing. The job search portal was definitely not what it is today. In fact, when I left the practice of law, there was probably about 300 to 400 million users on LinkedIn. Today, as of today, that number is over 800 million users. And just to show you how powerful LinkedIn has become since the pandemic, last year in June, there were over 750 million users. So you can see just how powerful the platform is in terms of people needing jobs, people being able to search for jobs, people being able to connect with recruiters, hiring executives, company founders, and exactly do what you want to do, which is be able to upload your resume and apply for positions. What's really changed about LinkedIn and this whole online space today is this idea of a personal brand, right? And we hear this theory about this synopsis of, what's your personal brand? And your personal brand is your online reputation. And what that really means is you had a personal brand before the digital world came about, right? Because personal branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's quote by Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon. And really, ultimately, your professional reputation is your personal brand, but it's moved to the digital space. And the reason why it's moved to the digital space is because of how high LinkedIn ranks at the top of Google. So I Googled my name a couple of days ago. And what's really interesting is just to see how high of domain authority LinkedIn has. Now, for me, I've got my website at the top of Google. I've also got my knowledge panel because I'm in a lot of media outlets. I've got my Twitter channel above LinkedIn. That's probably because Twitter's been around longer than LinkedIn, and I have a blue check verified account on Twitter. So it probably ranks higher for me because of that. But the average person heading to Google their names, if they don't have a company and they don't have a personal website, LinkedIn is going to be a matter of first impression. And so that's what's really changed is everything today has moved to this online space of where you are completely 100% searchable at the top of Google. So if someone wants to learn about you, the first thing they're going to do is head to Google and run a Google search for your name. One of the things that I actually recommend doing is Googling yourself at least every month to 2 months to see what is out there about you. Sometimes you could be quoted in an article without you even realizing it. And it's really nice to be able to even set alerts to know what is being written about you on the internet, or if you're speaker at an event, or you're quoted in a publication, or you are presenting at an event that now is going to have a panel where you're also going to be presenting, and you can see how the dynamic continues to cycle. One of the things that is super important is having a professional headshot. I'm a huge proponent of having a professional headshot, mainly because you get 14 times more views and you're 36 times more likely to receive a message as a result of having a professional headshot. Mine was taken a couple years ago. If you're in the South Florida area, it's by Chris Headshots. He's really, really well known. And I even included a link. There's no kickbacks for me. I don't get any, affiliate relationships or anything like that. No royalties for referring you to this database called Headshot Crew. Headshot Crew is a great database because it is founded by a guy named Peter Hurley, who's this world-renowned headshot photographer. He goes around the country and the world training headshot photographers how to take crisp, clean headshots. And so they do a great job of marketing this database. So whether you're in Colorado, Massachusetts, California, New York, Florida, you can actually utilize headshotcrew.com to research this database to find a local headshot photographer. I recommend a professional headshot for a couple of reasons. If you are potentially a GC or going to be a GC, you're most likely going to be on the company's leadership team website and on the website for the leadership team. So what that means is if you look at a typical website that has a leadership team listed, they're going to list the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the CLO, or GC. So you really want to have a professional headshot. The other thing is it's a good investment to have because if you do a lot of speaking like I do, you're going to wind up sending that headshot out to the organization and they're going to use it as part of their promo material. So again, professional headshot really matters. I also recommend having a headshot where you're actually smiling. If you read about the psychology of headshots, it actually says that someone who is smiling is much more approachable. So I'm a big proponent of grabbing that professional headshot that's going to have you smiling. So let's dive into other things about LinkedIn. And one of the most asked questions that I get is, when it comes to LinkedIn, what items do I need to have to rank higher in search results, right? And so a lot of times, and feel free to drop in the comments if you're one of those people who is kind of afraid to have a lot of information out there about you on the internet. Clients come to me at all different points across their career in terms of their digital footprint, right? And so there's a lot of clients that come to me that have a really static LinkedIn profile, meaning they've been working at a company for 15 to 20 plus years. they've had a really progressive career. Maybe they started out as a corporate counsel, moved all the way up to a senior counsel, then to an assistant GC, then to a deputy GC, and now they're the GC. And they basically have no LinkedIn presence, meaning that they may have a little bits and pieces of information in terms of like where they work, but their 20 plus year career history doesn't really show the level of promotions within that organization. And so your job titles on LinkedIn are going to be really important. And this is the list of, in terms of importance, what things really matter to rank you higher in search results: your LinkedIn headline, your summary, your location, skills and endorsements, and a proper and current job title. So let's dive into what is important when it comes to your LinkedIn headline. And if you don't update your headline and structure it in a very specific sort of SEO, search engine optimization, specialized way, what will happen is LinkedIn is just going to simply default to your current job title. And in essence, your LinkedIn headline is the title of your book. But what I really want to emphasize today is that you're so much more than just your job title. And there is a specific strategy that I subscribe to when it comes to LinkedIn. And I'm going to dive into that and kind of show you some best practices and actually show you a physical example of a good SEO optimized LinkedIn headline, depending on what you're utilizing it for. So here are some rules that I subscribe to. I call them best practices. One of the things I think is really important is keeping your headline relevant, simple, and digestible. And what that means is don't put extraneous items into your profile headline, meaning like I'll sometimes see someone call themselves a technology evangelist or a technology enthusiast. The reality is that if I am a recruiter and I'm looking for a chief technology officer, someone using technology enthusiast or technology evangelist is not going to be searchable. If you list at the top in your LinkedIn headline that you're a marathon runner, it's great. I ran 2 marathons 10 years ago, but it's not really important. It's not necessarily part of your personal brand that is there to market you for a position. So keep it relevant to your career, relevant to your practice area, simple and digestible. Now you get up to 220 characters, but my rule of thumb is you don't have to use all 220 characters. Remember, you want a person to look at your headline, know what it is that you do, what industry you serve in, and also what types of clients you represent. And so begin to think about beyond just your job title of, general counsel at Starbucks, what areas of practice are you known for? Are you known for corporate governance? Are you known for litigation management? Are you known for mergers and acquisitions? You want to think about keywords that if a recruiter went to that white query toolbar at the top of LinkedIn, what would they be utilizing? What keywords would they be utilizing to find someone like you? And I'm also a proponent of using bullet points or that vertical bar, which is the pipeline, to really break up the words and the sections on the headline. Because remember, people read really fast. They skim content. So if you've got a lot of words and there's no sort of pipeline or bullet point in between, it's going to be really hard for someone who is just coming across your LinkedIn headline to be able to digest that. So I'm going to use a LinkedIn headline example. This is actually my brother. We're 6 years apart. He's actually 6 years younger than me, went totally different routes in our legal career. He graduated from Nova, I think 2009. He started practicing law, and he's been with the Broward County State Attorney's Office for the entire time that he's been practicing law. And so my brother is an example of someone who really does not want that much of a digital footprint, and mainly because he handles really high profile traffic homicide cases. I don't know if anyone here in the chat is from South Florida or in the session, but he's on the news a lot and his cases make major headlines in South Florida. So for him, he needed to have the profile because he's got a very powerful digital footprint and he's in the media a lot, but he doesn't want to have too much information out there because he's a high profile person. So we just have a background photo of the courtroom, and we have an important distinction of what he does in his headline. So we've got his title, which is Supervising Assistant State Attorney. We've got where he practices, in the county where he practices. The fact that he's a criminal prosecutor is a highly searchable title And the fact that he does traffic homicide cases, also very searchable. So for example, if the AUSAs were looking to recruit him to be a federal prosecutor, he would actually come up in a search if they're looking for someone that's a criminal prosecutor that's handled traffic homicide cases in, let's say, Fort Lauderdale, Broward County. Because remember, location is really important. Where he works is really important as well. So now he's got Broward County and he's got Fort Lauderdale in there, which makes it even more powerful. So your LinkedIn summary, a lot of people opt out of this section, or they just simply dump their resume into their LinkedIn summary, which is a really big no-no. And I'll explain why. For one, your resume is only going to be seen by a hand select audience. It's going to be seen by people that you actually hand deliver virtually your resume to, correct? So one of the things that you want to think about when you're going through the process of writing your LinkedIn summary is, what is your story? What is your unique value? What do you want to be known for? What should someone know about you based on your career level, your years of experience, your career trajectory? And so it really should be written in first person, because LinkedIn is a social network. It is there meant to connect person to person. It should not read like an obituary. It should not read like a bio from the law firm's website. It really should be written in a first person humanistic format. Now, a couple of rules when it comes to writing your LinkedIn summary and about section. The first 300 characters, which is about 3 to 4 lines, matter the most. So don't waste real estate by saying, "Who am I? Hello, my name is." No one needs to know that, because they already know what your name is, and they already know who you are because your name's at the top of your LinkedIn profile. So it's really important to take those first 300 characters, those first 3 to 4 lines, and introduce your career level, your areas of focus, and the industry you serve, especially if you want to stay, let's say, for example, you want to stay in healthcare, or you want to stay in a heavily regulated industry, or let's say, for example, you're in tech and you're in a very specialized niche of tech. People who come to your LinkedIn profile should know that in the first 3 to 4 lines. The next piece of that is types of companies or firms you've worked for. If you go to any job posting for a general counsel, a chief legal officer, a very senior level corporate counsel on the executive team, the job posting is going to mention someone that's got top law firm experience, or AmLaw 100 experience, or AmLaw 200 experience. If you've also worked for solely private equity firms and you're applying for other positions that mention private equity firm experience, you want to have that in your LinkedIn about section or summary, because those are, again, powerful keywords. It also lets a reader know off the bat what areas you centralize in. Are you working for publicly traded companies, privately held, venture capital backed companies, or, for example, startups? Another thing is your leadership assets, your unique value, your leadership style, what you're passionate about. What do you enjoy the most about being a corporate counsel besides the cliche trusted advisor? Do you like building legal departments from scratch? Do you enjoy reporting to the business? Do you enjoy interacting with the board? Have you been a corporate secretary? What types of things have you done as a corporate secretary? Your corporate governance experience, if you've done SEC compliance, all of those things are really helpful. Now, one thing that I want to scale back on is, what do you do, for example, if you don't have corporate governance experience and you're applying for positions that require it? There's a couple of routes you can go. And I have an article that I wrote, I think it was last week in Above the Law, about how if you don't have a specialization in a specific area, but you really want to pivot or transition into that area, you can make up for it by taking CLE classes, online seminars, online certificate programs, and really diving in to corporate governance areas and SEC compliance. If you took some CLEs, you could actually build that into your LinkedIn profile, your resume. So again, there's ways around it if you don't have that specific experience of how you can truly leverage it and pivot it. Because at the end of the day, your LinkedIn profile, your resume, they're all marketing tools. They are all there geared as a threshold requirement for you to land an interview. And then on the interview, you're ultimately selling yourself. So again, these types of things, talking about who you are as a leader, the things that you're passionate about, what energizes you in your daily work, And you can also include some hobbies. A question I get asked a lot is, could I add in, I enjoy running, or I've traveled to, all 7 continents? Of course, but that wouldn't be at the top of your LinkedIn profile. It should be at the end. And then also you can include bullet points for board and community leadership, recognition awards. If you're admitted to practice in various jurisdictions, I would include your bar admissions. Again, your LinkedIn summary about section is exactly like the back of a book jacket. It is there to entice a reader, to get them to want to reach out to you, connect with you, send you a message about a potential career opportunity or leadership opportunity. And the reality is that LinkedIn is as powerful as you want it to be. So yes, you can use LinkedIn for a job search, but you don't have to use LinkedIn for a job search. I'm not on LinkedIn because I'm looking for a job. I actually utilize LinkedIn in a number of ways. One, it's part of my brand. So my profile is written in a very specific, strategic way. For example, after my name on my LinkedIn profile, I have the writing guru. And that's done strategically because if you Google my name, it'll pop up search results for the writing guru. So my name and the writing guru are highly searchable interchangeably. So I really want, when someone goes onto LinkedIn, if they're looking for me, Wendi Weiner, or they're looking for the writing guru, I want them to be able to find both. So for example, if you work for a publicly traded company, you want to be searched for that company's name. So that name should be in your headline, and it should also be in your summary a couple of times, because again, LinkedIn functions like Google. So keyword optimization, search engine optimization, all of those things are really, really important. And by the way, I apologize if I'm talking fast. I want to make sure I get through all the info and then have some time for questions at the end. And I'm going to also point you in the direction of some additional articles that I have that go along with this information. So a couple of things when it comes to readability. Now, remember, the average person has a really short attention span. They're skimming for specific keywords, pieces of information. So you have to really play into the psychology of the digital reader, both for your resume and your LinkedIn profile. So long paragraphs, huge blocks of text do not work. The same way if someone opens up your resume and sees 20 bullet points, that type of style, that type of strategy does not work in the digital age, because people need to be able to see things very quickly. They're looking for keywords. So a lot of how you write plays into the psychology of whether or not the reader is going to continue reading on. So a couple of things. One, keep paragraphs to 3 to 4 lines maximum. Use bullet points to create that easy to read format for your profile. And just, again, make it digestible. If you're going to have a paragraph about your board leadership, maybe you put at the top board leadership, and then you put underneath a sentence or two about boards that you're involved in. One thing to think about too, when it comes to your LinkedIn, is where you see yourself in 5 to 10 years from now, even 15 years from now. And I know sometimes that could be hard, right? Because, if we were to all think about where we'd be 5 years from now, most of us would say we'd never think we'd be doing virtual conferences and seminars and working remotely during a 2+ year pandemic. So things really change. And I think it's important to always have an optimized LinkedIn profile, a optimized resume, updated resume that's ready to go, because ultimately LinkedIn is there to bring you opportunities when you are least expecting them and when you're not looking. And the reality is that LinkedIn is your billboard for the highway of traffic that is going to come by. So think about all the billboards that you pass on the highway. You want one that's going to catch that driver's attention, who's just quickly passing by. Same thought process when it comes to your LinkedIn profile. That digital footprint is really, really important. So a couple of other things when it comes to writing a powerful LinkedIn summary. I do have several articles on writing a powerful LinkedIn summary. And so you can go ahead and find that on my above the law column. So experience section. All right. So I have this image up of the experience section. And one of the things that I really, really try to say to clients all the time and job seekers is, do not make your experience section the kitchen sink. Do not dump everything from your resume into your LinkedIn profile. Spend time actually being strategic about what you're including in your experience section. The reality is that your job titles are much more important to the search results. However, sometimes job titles are a misnomer. And I actually have a recent Above the Law article about that, because you could be the assistant general counsel at a company, but you might be that first person in command. They may not have a title for general counsel, or you could have the title counsel and you are the sole counsel to that company. So you are the functional general counsel. So in that sense, yes, I would explain those things when it comes to your experience section, but please do not dump your resume into your experience section. You need just a couple of sentences, keyword focused sentences that talk about your areas of experience, whether you've advanced into multiple roles, but it does not need to be the kitchen sink. If someone wants your resume, they're going to ask for it. The idea is LinkedIn is just an attraction device to get people to ask for your resume. So make sure that your experience section is updated, meaning that it lists the correct job titles. So if you've got your resume with a specific job title, make sure that LinkedIn profile has that job title. Based on ethics, in my opinion, honesty is always the best policy. And obviously as lawyers, we're held to different standards. Really important, again, make sure dates align. So where I've seen a lot of people mess up is sometimes they forget when they started at a company or changed positions because they've been at a company for a long time. So you definitely want to make sure dates align between your resume experience and your LinkedIn experience. If a law firm has changed or closed or merged, include that information. And one really big one is if you're doing contract-based work for a company, and you're not a W-2 employee, make sure it's clear who you're employed by. I've seen people do this where they say that they're a corporate counsel for Amazon or Microsoft, but they're really not. They're outside counsel or they're a contract counsel from a company like Axiom. And so you can include worked on discovery project for a Fortune 50 technology company, but you would not want to list yourself as a corporate counsel because it's disingenuous if you're not a true W-2 employee. You have to really explain it in a very ethical, honest, and transparent way. So I'm a big proponent of it because it can cause a lot of confusion and it could really push away potential employers from wanting to hire you if you're not honest. Other areas of LinkedIn that you should use. Okay, so these are other really important areas that a lot of people overlook. Skills and endorsements section. If one big takeaway that you get from this presentation today, besides the headline and the summary, is scroll down to your skills and endorsements section of your LinkedIn profile. You get to pin 3 skills to the top. And a lot of people overlook that section because they're so focused on their headline and their summary and their job titles and dumping their resume into their experience, which they shouldn't. They overlook the skills and endorsements section. And if you have not updated your LinkedIn in a long time, I'm willing to bet that some of your top skills are legal research and legal writing, which is great if you're first or second year lawyer. But if you're 10, 15, 20 plus years into practice, your top skill is not going to be legal research or legal writing. It's going to be executive leadership, corporate strategy, corporate governance, regulatory compliance, contract negotiations, litigation management, board interaction. You can see where I'm going with this. So really focus on making sure that your skills and endorsements are updated. Another thing is, let's say, for example, you are trying to go for a general counsel position and you are really focused on corporate governance and regulatory compliance, but your top 3 skills on your LinkedIn are intellectual property, trademarks, and patents. And you can't understand why recruiters keep approaching you for specific just IP counsel positions. That's why. So make sure that it's the top most relevant 3 skills that are pinned to the top. And then another thing is your featured section. So a lot of people overlook this, or they just default to, putting a high performing LinkedIn post on the featured section. That is a complete waste of real estate. If you are looking to really promote yourself, you should have things like a bio that's written about you that's linked on a website as part of your featured section. If you've been published in a major media outlet with an article about you and who you are as a general counsel or assistant general counsel, or things that you've done for the company, or for example, you're heavily involved in a board or a community program or community initiative, really utilize the featured section to your advantage, because when someone scrolls through your profile, that's one of the first things that they see. So for me, on my featured section, I've got my website because it's a high traffic, high ranking domain site that I rank on the first page of Google. So for me, the featured section is where I'm going to want people to click. So my website would be the first thing. Major, high traffic articles from above the law that I know are going to get readers clicking. Those things should be in your featured section. You could use your company's website. If you're part of the leadership team, and let's say there's only a small bio about you, give the link to the leadership team page of your company's site. But your featured section should really be used in a strategic way. Another thing, licenses, certifications, and volunteer work. So that's also often overlooked. And if you've got those privacy certifications, the CIPP US or CIPP EU, you definitely want to make sure that those certifications are listed on your LinkedIn. Licenses, your bar licenses are great to list on LinkedIn, because let's say, for example, you are applying for a assistant GC or GC position at a California-based company, in Silicon Valley, and you actually aren't licensed in California, but you're licensed in New York, and the job posting says, must be licensed in California or New York. You want that to populate in your LinkedIn profile, and most often, lawyers don't list their bar licenses. So again, that's really lucrative. Obviously, your education section goes without saying that you should have your degrees listed. Advanced search filters, I'll show you that on another screen. Privacy filters, another big thing. So a question that I get asked a lot is whether or not you should be on private mode or public mode. And what that means is, if you look at someone's LinkedIn profile, do you want that person knowing that you're looking at their profile? So obviously there's pros and cons. I'll tell you that mine is private, but it's private for a very strategic reason, because I research a lot for clients. So clients will often tell me, I'm third in line to the GC at the company. And so, or if they're not the GC, they're going to be, second or third in line. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll look up their, company structure for the legal department. Well, I don't want, if they're the assistant GC or deputy GC, I don't want the GC of the company looking at the fact that I looked at their profile. Or if I'm looking up the other C-suite team, I don't want them knowing that I'm looking at the profile. So I do a lot of very heavy hitting research for clients. And because I was the ethics chair for the Resume Writers Association, often I had to research resume writers and coaches who actually weren't certified or members of the organization, but were claiming such. So because of that, I've always kept my filters on private. I have clients all over the place. Some want to be on private mode in terms of like who they're looking at. Some want to be on public mode. It really depends. The negative thing about being on private mode, if you don't have a LinkedIn premium account, is that you can't see who is looking at your profile. I actually just got LinkedIn Premium. It's probably a question in the chat. I just got LinkedIn Premium probably 2 weeks ago. And my only reason for getting it personally was because my commercial use limit kept hitting every month. So I wasn't able to do as many deep dive searches. So like after a certain period in the month, because I had researched so much for clients, I was really being cut off. So I had to get LinkedIn Premium. And so I've always advised my clients who are job searching to have it, because you get competitive intelligence insights and you get to see more in terms of information about a company's job postings. But I have to tell you that personally, ever since I got LinkedIn Premium, my views have skyrocketed. I mean, I always had a few thousand views a month on my profile, but the amount of in-mail messages has tripled. And I wasn't doing it to get more in-mail messages because my inbox is pretty crazy on a regular basis. But I do believe in looking at what I was getting before on LinkedIn Premium and the amount of views versus now, LinkedIn does do that pay to play, meaning they reward people who are paying for their service, right? It's the same thing where like if you pay to boost an ad on Instagram or Facebook, you're going to get rewarded for it. So if you're on the fence about LinkedIn Premium, and believe me, I don't get any, kickbacks or anything like that. If you want your views to increase, besides having the optimized profile, I would definitely consider the premium because you get more features. And I know my clients have had massive amounts of success when they've had premium. But I also think that you just get more features and you get populated faster in search results. And I mean, I only switched it again 2 weeks ago and I was getting a lot of traffic before, but I started to notice I was getting a higher amount of traffic, and I haven't done anything different in the last 2 weeks that would justify why I'm getting increased views or increased traffic. So the only by deductive reasoning, I think it's the LinkedIn Premium. Another thing is career breaks for career gaps. This is a great feature that LinkedIn just came out with. And so if you are a mom or a dad that took time off, or let's say you even took time off to care for a sick parent, and you've got this gap in your resume and gap in your LinkedIn profile that's constantly asked about, you can actually put a personal sabbatical as a career break, which is terrific. Before you wouldn't be able to, you would have to figure out a way to you'd have to figure out a way to be creative about the career gap. But now you've got this career break feature that LinkedIn is promoting. Another thing that I want to show you is just how much the LinkedIn job portal has really, really transformed the way that you can job search today. So I ran a search a couple of days ago I just typed in General Counsel, United States, and it brought up 23,000 results. Now, I know realistically that even when I hit General Counsel, United States, you can see here that it's bringing up Assistant General Counsel, Director and Associate General Counsel. That's because it's bringing up search results for any job posting that has the word General Counsel in it. So a couple of things that you can do. You can micro-target your job search. If you look up here where it says experience level and you click on the drop-down menu, you would want, if you're a GC looking for another GC, you want to definitely hit the executive experience level, because what's going to happen is sometimes, and I'm sure many of you who are really experienced have seen this, where you see a general counsel position listed and you're like, wow, this is great, I want to apply for this job. And then you start to read the experience and it says 5 to 7 years of experience for a general counsel. And that definitely could happen, especially if it's a startup and they're not really going to command the salary of someone that is a GC at a publicly traded company. And there's nothing wrong with applying for a GC role 5 to 7 years out, but it's definitely not going to be the higher salary. And so you definitely want to read and analyze the job postings because not only is it going to be it's cost prohibitive for you to apply for a job if you've got 20 years of experience and they want someone with 5 to 7 years. They're obviously at a different type of budget, but they're also looking to grow. And so if you're looking to go to a well-established legal department, that 5 to 7 years of experience when you've got 20 will likely result in you not even hearing back or getting a rejection letter. So what you really want to do when it comes to the LinkedIn job portal is spend some time going through the filters. Also, one thing that I'm pointing to over here that's really important that I show clients is if you haven't job searched in a long time and now you want to go back to the office, you can actually micro-target a search for on-site positions in New York City. Or if you're remote and you click on remote, you will see how the filters just continue to drop down, because the reality is you're not going to want to spend hours and hours sifting through 23,000 plus job postings. So the LinkedIn job portal makes it really easy for you to do what's called a micro-targeted niche focused job search. So really utilize the job portal. Also go through the job postings. That's going to be really important as well. As I mentioned before, the LinkedIn featured section, great place to put media links, articles and news, awards, to way to showcase your valuable insights and credibility. And now I want to spend a good few minutes that we have left, because I want to reserve some time for Q&A, is what LinkedIn is really geared for. Besides using it to apply for jobs, it's really meant to build relationships. And a lot of people fall into this trap of feeling that, I go on LinkedIn and I see this person and they've got, 300 likes on a post, and I don't get that amount of likes on a post. And to that, I say, do not feel saddened or disenchanted or feel inferior to someone that may have a lot of likes and views on a post or comments, because realistically, comments and likes on a post do not necessarily translate to that person having massive amounts of success. In fact, I'm willing to bet that a lot of people who are getting all of these likes and comments are most often in engagement pods, and they're using WhatsApp chats and Slack groups to get comments. And you can tell because when it's the same 3 people commenting or 4 people commenting, it's different if it's a friend. But if it's the same people that are liking and engaging on the same post with vapid comments, you're not building relationships. All you're trying to do is get a like and a comment on a post. And that's not the goal of LinkedIn. And in fact, one of the things I try to emphasize is building your LinkedIn network based on quality, not quantity. And I actually can tell you with total transparency that I reject a lot of people that try to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd have 50,000+ connections on LinkedIn if I accepted every single person that requests to connect to me. And I'm talking about lead generation experts, people trying to sell me financial services, people trying to sell me life insurance. I had someone the other day trying to sell me fashion consulting for men. They obviously didn't read my profile and realize I was a female. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that are using automation software on LinkedIn to just build a rapid network. And it's not a network of quality, it's just a network of quantity. And realistically, your network should be based on quality connections. And when it comes to who to connect with and follow, I'll give you some suggestions. 1, you should be connecting with former law school alumni, former undergrad alumni, people that you matriculated school with. And one of the other places where I think you should also be willing to connect is with people who are where you want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now. I think that's really important because those are the people that would be great mentors for you, people that you can learn from, and people that may hold a job opening and post about it without you even realizing it. So for example, if you are a younger corporate counsel and you eventually want to be a GC and a board member, I would tell you to target specific people who are in your niche or targeted companies of interest and begin to connect with them, and request to connect with them, engage on their content, and really begin to follow what it is that they do. And don't be afraid to seek out an informational interview or a coffee chat, because ultimately the power of LinkedIn is infinite, and you have this ability to connect and engage with people that you never really had access to 7, 10, 15+ years ago. So ultimately, it's beneficial to have a robust network of people that are going to basically have a hand in the hat for you for your career, your future career and your career success and all of that. And so I am really discerning when it comes to who I connect with and who I follow on the platform. And don't be afraid to reject people. Obviously, I'm not going to reject anyone from this presentation because you're my people, but and the clients I work with, right? And the content that I write is geared towards in-house counsels and lawyers in general and executives. But I'm talking about the people that, as I know, as soon as I hit accept, they are going to pitch me a service. And look, sometimes you just don't know. I connected with a CMO and would not stop the person would not stop pounding me with messages, trying to sell me a service that I didn't need. I've had PR companies, public relations companies saying, hey, do you want to get into the media? We can help you get into media. Well, great. I'm already in 75 plus media outlets. I don't think I need any more PR. They don't read my profile. They don't look to see what my profile is about. They're just looking for a specific type of person. Oh, she's a writer. Let's try to get her media. We're going to pitch her. So again, I really like the idea of being discerning of who you're going to connect with and follow, because the way I see it is LinkedIn is not a numbers game. Just because you've got 30,000 connections doesn't mean that you're any more successful than the person that may have 2,000 connections in their network. Another thing with LinkedIn is company and legal department insights. So I did a search. I picked Starbucks because it's a universal brand. And I decided to go and type in Counsel for Starbucks to see how many corporate counsels Starbucks has. And so you can see here, if let's say, for example, Starbucks is a company that's on your radar, you want to go work for their legal department, I would do a search for Starbucks. You click on the company page, you click on employees, then you click on and type in Counsel. You can actually see 148 results populate for Counsel at Starbucks. Now, what I want to tell you is that may not be everyone who's presently employed there. They could also be past employees who are corporate counsels in the legal department at Starbucks. So you can really ascertain a large amount of insights into who is in the legal department at a specific company. And before you go on an interview, before you apply for a position, I would do a deep dive into the legal department and find out how many attorneys there are in the legal department. I would also really be interested in, do they have promotions within the legal department often? Do people advance in the legal department? Do they stay in the legal department a long time? You know, years ago before LinkedIn really became what it is now, I remember around the 2008, 2010 era going on interviews at law firms. And, you know, I only knew what they told me, right? Oh, we have associates that stay a long time. Oh, you know, this associate's been here 3, 4, 5+ years. And the reality is that what I didn't know and what I couldn't tell is how much turnover that firm had. And so now today you can determine if a company's legal department or a law firm has a significant amount of turnover, because you can tell by how many people come and go and how often they change jobs. So all of that is just really insightful, because you get to know so much more about a company today that's really at your fingertips than you ever did before. So I really recommend investing the time and energy into researching legal departments before you actually can apply and invest. So a couple of things about content and engagement on LinkedIn, and I want you to think about this realistically. Even though LinkedIn has 800+ million users, it only has 310 million monthly users, right? And so the reality is that 90% of social media users don't even publicly interact. Only 1% of people actually post on LinkedIn, and only 9% are engaged on LinkedIn. And so the one thing that I want you to have as a major takeaway is, don't chase followers, likes, or comments, and cheating the algorithm doesn't work. I find that I don't pay attention really to engagement on my LinkedIn, mainly because I'm so busy, but also what those comments and likes do not tell you is how many people are actually clicking on an article that I write or viewing it, because that information is not viewable to the public. So I've had a few articles that I've written for Above the Law that on LinkedIn, when I shared it, it doesn't look like it's having as much engagement. But I had one article that I wrote recently about alternative careers for lawyers, and that article, when I posted it to LinkedIn, it had over 20,000 views. But if you look at the comments and the likes on it, you wouldn't be able to tell that. So that's why I truly believe that there are people that read your content, but they may not engage with it. So I wouldn't focus so much on content and engagement on LinkedIn as I would on being more searchable on your profile. Because when I think about, for example, the GCs and the CLOs that hire me, they are so busy running multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar infrastructures that they don't have the time to really engage the way that people, younger professionals do engage on LinkedIn. So yes, I do think it's good to, share content and engage with people every once in a while, but you don't have to spend hours and hours a week on that engagement and that content creation. What I actually would recommend is really focusing on getting into someone's inbox and building a relationship privately on that inbox and being more searchable on your profile. Because the other facet of this is it's a huge time suck to be engaging and commenting. And so I think that if you could really connect with someone on LinkedIn who is where you want to be 5, 10, 15 years from now and build a trusted relationship with them and use your profile strategically, because that's what ranks on Google searches, you will win more opportunities down the road. I can't tell you how many people who have just found me based on my profile, or people who hire me to work on their profile and they're not even looking at my LinkedIn profile. So that's why I think you really have to get into someone's inbox more so than engaging and on the content creation piece for LinkedIn. So a few places where you can get additional resources. Obviously, Above the Law is probably the best place. I've written about alternative careers for lawyers, legal resumes, LinkedIn tips, and networking strategies. I have a weekly column with Above the Law. I also have articles from the ABA, and I have a prior column with Thrive Global. I don't write in it as much. And I had a really high traffic column with a Huffington Post for a number of years. But if you do connect with me, you'll see that I post a lot on LinkedIn, just my Above the Law articles. I only post maybe once a week, sometimes if I have time, twice a week, but usually it's once a week because of time constraints. But also another place where you can find me is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. All of my handles are The Writing Guru, and you'll know it's me because I have that little blue tick, blue check, whatever you call it. And my website is writingguru.net, and my email is Wendi@writingguru. And if you're shy and you don't like to ask questions in a public forum, please feel free to connect with me, send me an email, send me your questions. I know that some people get shy and don't like to ask questions in a public forum, but I'm always open to any questions that you have.
You definitely talk fast, but it was a lot of great information.
Sorry, I do talk very fast. And sometimes I fumble over my words because I'm trying to get all the information out.
No, it was fantastic. I thought I learned a ton of new things. I'm sure many people out there did as well. So we're in the Q&A section. If you have questions, please submit them in the chat and I will feed them to Wendi. We have a few questions queued up already. So first question, this will be recorded and shared. It takes about a couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. And I want to echo what Wendi said, don't go chasing likes and shares on LinkedIn, but also be sure to share all the In-House Connect content you see
Our
company page. I just had to get that in there. Okay, on to the questions. So a few people asked this. Any thoughts on activating creator mode in LinkedIn? The questioner said, shout out Sean. He said, I've turned it on, but not clear what it really does. Do you have any advice on that?
Great question. So I initially turned it on, and I think I kept it on for a week or two. This is the problem with creator mode. It actually pushes your summary, your about section further down in your profile. And if I am a job seeker or I'm a service provider, I want people to read my about section before they hit my content, because my content is not what drives people's attention. It's actually my profile, because that is the most searchable, keyword optimized item. So I'm not a huge proponent of creator mode. And listen, I have clients that are in healthcare and thought leaders, and they have creator mode turned on. They haven't seen a huge influx of traffic. What you can do is you can switch in your settings, and I don't know offhand exactly where it is in the settings. I'd have to double check, but reach out to me and I'll figure it out and tell you exactly step by step how to do this. But you can actually change your settings from connect to follow. So if, like, for example, you go to my LinkedIn, you actually have to hit follow to connect with me. And when I activated creator mode, I didn't realize that it threw that off when I disengaged creator mode. So I couldn't understand why people were constantly trying to connect me. Why weren't they just hitting follow? And then I realized one day recently, a couple weeks ago, that my follow button was off. The follow button is really nice to have if you are posting content on a weekly or multiple times a week, and you don't want to accept everyone that requests to connect with you.
I personally like the connect button because you get to interact, right? If you follow, you can't message each other, but connection, you get to interact. There is a limit, but we're a ways away from that. So thank you for that answer. The next couple of questions involve posting articles. The first one is about hashtags. I feel like hashtags is a weird subject for LinkedIn. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. If you put too many, you get penalized. If you don't put enough, you get penalized. Do you have advice on hashtags and how many are good? How do you even find good hashtags? I've tried to look into myself and I've had trouble.
Yeah, actually, so when I work with clients, I really invest an hour with each client on the LinkedIn strategy at the end of the project. And I get an idea of, like, do they want to be a content creator, or are they really using the platform strictly for job searching and they're not going to post content? You're going to post content. It's advantageous to use a few hashtags, anywhere from 3 to 5, no more than 6. You don't want to be that person that puts a block of 30 hashtags, because LinkedIn, like Shai said, they do penalize you. So the goal is strategically 3 to 6. Really, I stay closer 3 to 5. And I vary my hashtags. So for example, like, I may write a post about LinkedIn tips, and I'm going to use a hashtag LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn tips, LinkedIn strategies. And I research those hashtags on LinkedIn to see how many followers there are. So you have to be strategic. I don't know how many of you have used like Instagram, but it's kind of the same thought process, where you don't want to use a hashtag that only 20 people follow or there's no followers for. So for example, like in-house counsel, that has a good amount of followers. However, you could create your own branded hashtag. So for example, like Shai, it may be advantageous for you to have a hashtag in-house connect, and you get everyone who's part of in-house connect to follow, like, please follow our hashtag on LinkedIn, because then what will happen is, if someone's following that hashtag strategically, your stuff is going to come up in their feed. So that's the advantage of hashtags and following hashtags that I would definitely recommend. But the reality is, unless you're Gary Vaynerchuk or Tony Robbins or someone with a massive following of several million, several 100,000 people, where they've hit that little bell that, gets notified, the reality is you're not going to get that level of engagement based on just, not using hashtags. So I think hashtags could be good, especially if you want to break into another area. Like, let's say like you're starting to write content about data privacy, but I would also tell you to start looking through that data privacy hashtag and see who posts consistently about data privacy.
We do have an in-house connect hashtag. I tend to agree with you. I don't think hashtags are that effective. Like we add them just because, but I don't think it's really gonna, make waves generally. I would also, this is like a first cousin to hashtags. And I think you'll agree with me. There's a lot of people who tag, random people in a post that has nothing to do with them to capitalize on their, profile. And it's different. Like, I tag people when it makes sense. If you go to the event and you drive, I'll tag you. But if I'm posting about, some random topic and then I tag all these random people, that gets annoying. That happens to me a few times, like a bunch, and I unfriended somebody. I'm sure you would agree. Don't do that.
Yeah. There was someone that would constantly tag me in posts because they were tagging 50 people. I agree with you. By the way, that type of stuff drives me crazy. I don't want to be tagged in posts. And I got it because people see my, following. They're like, wow, she's got 18,000 plus followers. So when she posts stuff, she gets more views. and LinkedIn rewards that. But, more powerful your network, the more views you're going to get on your content. But as a rule of practice, I just don't like it. And I would never be in an engagement pod because I really want authentic, real-time comments. I want people engaging with my content because they actually really like it. I think the only person who shares and engages with my content the most on any social media platform is my mom, because I always say she's my biggest fan.
Great. All right. Well, another question, and this is a great question. Shout out, Michaela. If we are sharing a LinkedIn post created by somebody else to our own feed, how do we maximize reach for that, for that post outside of, our own network? I feel like sharing, somebody else's post, or even sharing an article, doesn't get you so much traction as opposed to, those posts that people do with they space it out. There's a lot of different ways to get more in LinkedIn love, so to speak.
You would have to be strategic. Yeah, you would have to be strategic about hashtags that you're using. So just sharing someone's post isn't enough to get the visibility. You really have to use at least 3 to 5 hashtags to get the views. Now, a strategy that would be really good for hashtags. So I don't necessarily like to hashtag in the middle of the post. I actually like to put the hashtags at the end, or strategically you could put a hashtag at the very beginning. So if it's in-house counsel, or I'm doing a post about lawyers, I may use that hashtag first. But realistically, you want to use a few hashtags because it's advantageous for you to get that visibility based on using strategic ways to get it.
I have another question, and I love this question. I think Chris submitted it. What is your thoughts on sharing personal news and or views on LinkedIn? I've seen a lot of strong views lately about posts regarding Ukraine, but going, back many years, LinkedIn posts on U.S. political social views have also aroused passions. There's also I feel like there's an ongoing debate about whether it makes sense to post wedding, announcements and baby births and so on and so forth. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I think that on some levels, people say that LinkedIn has become Facebook, where people post what you call thirsty, attention-seeking types of posts. But the reality is the personal posts actually do well, right? But the reality is I've had a few of those posts. And I've had posts that have gotten 50, 60 plus thousand views. And all it really does is to me, it drives me batty because my notifications are going off nonstop. And a lot of these people who like and engage on it aren't necessarily, they may follow my content or request to connect with me, but they're not necessarily people that are really going to my profile. They're really just commenting and engaging. And so I think approach with caution, right? Because you own your LinkedIn account. It's not your employer's account. But I'm really careful about the things that I do post on social media in general, just because, and I think we can all agree that the last election was a very heated election. I had, family and friends on both sides of the political spectrum. And I actually turned off the feature on LinkedIn because I was tired of seeing the political posts. More so because I want to see real good stuff on LinkedIn. But I agree, there are a lot of personal posts that may not be LinkedIn appropriate. You just have to decide your comfort level, right? Because part of social media is stepping outside of your comfort zone and maybe sharing things that you typically wouldn't share with people. So I've done some storytelling and I've shared some very personal posts. I'll tell you that I lost my Shih Tzu that I had for 15 and a half years. I adopted him when he was about 2. So I had him for almost 17 and a half years. I lost him in October, and it just really ravaged me and devastated me. And I wrote an article in Above the Law about why pet grief in general should be taken seriously in the workplace. I don't know if anyone here has lost a pet, but it was my first dog. I never had experienced it before. And I wrote an Above the Law article about it. And that article was one of my highest traffic articles to date. It wasn't even career advice. The amount of messages and outreach that I had from that post, that's one of my posts that did 50,000 plus views. So again, I mean, it just really depends. And listen, there was someone that commented like, who cares about your dog? And I just ignored that person. So you never know what is going to, what people are going to relate to and empathize with versus what people are going to be really in tune with. And so I can't tell you how many personal messages I got from lawyers after that article telling me their stories about pet loss. It really connected me with a lot of people. And that is something very personal. And I haven't even shared on LinkedIn yet. I just got a new puppy a couple of months ago. He's not here right now. I had to send him to the groomer. Otherwise he would have been crazy in my office. But I haven't shared that with my LinkedIn yet. I've been waiting a little bit to share it. But I think it just depends on what you're comfortable with. But people have posted about pet loss. People have posted about having kids. I've seen people post about fertility and child loss. And a big one that's out there now is people who have lost a relative or a spouse or a significant other to suicide, because now people are really openly talking about mental health. And people have shared their mental health stories and struggles and obstacles. So I just think it really is contingent on how comfortable you are with the topic.
So sorry about your pet.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
There's a few people also in the chat expressing their, their well wishes. So a couple of things. I guess this is kind of a last call for questions. So if you have questions, feel free to provide them now, because I have like a few last questions and then we're going to wrap up. The last few questions relate to job searches. So I guess my first question is, and this is my question, not from the chat, have you seen applicants or candidates get penalized or potentially penalized for posting certain personal information? Have you ever told somebody like, hey, you should delete these posts because that might not be, that might help you in the job search, or has it helped? Like what's the impact on job search?
That is a really great question. So if you are job searching, I would definitely stay away from political posts. Really hot topics of social importance, controversial topics as well. Because you just never know. Look, I think that discrimination happens more than we'd like to admit, even in our own profession. I mean, I can't tell you how many interviews I went on in the early years of my legal career where the partners wanted to know if I had a family and if I had kids. And they would ask it in a very roundabout way. And so there's a lot people can find about you today on the internet. And sharing certain things does put you at risk. And I would definitely, now one thing that I would suggest that you guys do is if a person is not logged into LinkedIn, they could still see a lot of information about you. And if you click on me, on your profile, you click on me, you hit edit public profile, you can see that there's tabs, and I would flip your activity off. If someone is not logged into LinkedIn, I would flip that activity off so that it's not open to the whole world. But no, look, I think that people like to get into heated arguments anyways online. And I'm sure that you guys have seen, there are people that post specifically what I call clickbait posts to start controversy. And then, sometimes, look, I've seen posts that really piss me off, but I don't publicly engage with them because I don't want my network to see that. Now, I'm not job searching, but if I was a job seeker, I'd be really careful about what I post, and I'd go back through my activity history and delete stuff that may be questionable, because you just never know what an employer might be thinking. And lawyers, we're held to a different standard. We're held to a higher standard of professionalism when it comes to things like that. So I would be very careful, and I would try to delete and backtrack stuff that maybe you got into an argument with. And look, sometimes I've just deleted comments that people have commented. If they put something negative, I've deleted that. So that's something, just to consider.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see this a lot with athletes and their Twitter profiles. Some athlete, student athlete, he says something like, bad when he was a teenager, and then he's a professional and they uncover it. I bet same kind of concept applies to professionals. So, always have to watch what you say. So I guess I have two more questions.
Sure.
On the subject of, your activities in LinkedIn, this is an interesting question. Are those posts, are they included in the algorithm? Like, do you think that has an impact? Like, let's say, I'm a data privacy attorney and I'm posting or I'm commenting about on a data privacy related post, and I say, the CCPA, and then somebody types in, data privacy CCPA. Would that, do you think that would impact the algorithm or search results?
I mean, if is it your post, or are you commenting on someone else's post?
Commenting on somebody else's post.
Well, so remember, when you comment on someone else's post, whoever's reading their post or who's in their network is able to see that. But when you comment on posts, your network is able to see that. And then LinkedIn decides early on in a post, LinkedIn decides whether it's worthy of the algorithm pushing it out to more people. So initially your post only gets seen by a certain number of people. And then as it starts to get more activity, LinkedIn says, it's artificial intelligence says, wow, this is a really popular, important post. So we're going to show it to more people. So let's say you comment on one of my posts, Shai, that is like a highly visible post. People in your network are going to see my post with your comment on it, which is why, for example, like there are people that will not publicly comment on my post about career stuff or resumes for lawyers or job search strategies, because they don't want someone in their network who might be a peer or a coworker seeing them engaging with my stuff about job search strategies. So that's why, like, you can't go by just engagement on a post alone. Like, if you saw my views on my post, you'd realize like my posts do very well, but they don't always get such high levels of engagement because of the nature of the topic. So I would say that, when you comment based on a strategy and think about like, okay, if I comment negatively or I sound antagonistic or I sound negative or aggressive, know that that comment could be seen by people in your network, and think about who you're connected to in your network, which is sometimes a lot of people don't think about on LinkedIn.
Like you said, like Jeff Bezos said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right?
Correct.
And that activity contributes. So our last question is an interesting question. It's a good question. So in the resume world, often when you're applying for different positions, you structure your resume differently, right? So if it's an IP position versus a product position or a data privacy position, right, you highlight that there's a lot of flexibility there. How does that translate to LinkedIn, where you have one profile? So like the question is like, how do you, any suggestions on that when you're applying to different, positions, and you want to, I wonder what your answer is, because I don't think there's a good, answer to that.
Yeah. So I have people that come to me all the time that say, I need 3-4 versions of my resume. And I remind them, okay, you could have 4 versions of your resume, but you're going to have only one LinkedIn profile. So you have to think about strategically. So I had a client a couple of years ago who was an IP counsel. Every position that he held was as an IP counsel, but he really wanted to be a GC. So he was open to going and applying for assistant deputy GC positions as well as GC positions. But he said, look, my LinkedIn profile pigeonholes me as an IP attorney because every position title says IP. So I said, well, we have to filter in specific keywords that would be for a corporate generalist. So we had a separate paragraph in there in his summary about him being a corporate generalist as well, and having diverse, broad experience in multiple areas of law. Now, if you want to get hits in a very strategic way for a specific type of position, example, I had a client that she was an IP counsel and was not getting hits on her LinkedIn. So I said, I want you to add this to your headline. And then when we work on your profile, we're going to add more stuff. I want you to add in licensed patent counsel on your headline. And a day after she added that, she got outreach from an internal recruiter at Apple looking for a licensed patent counsel. So strategy is really important. So again, you have to think about keywords that people are going to have. My goal when I write someone's resume is to have one master resume. And if they need to move things around for a specific position, yes, but I really don't want a client to have to keep reinventing the wheel and keep editing things. So that's why I think when you job search, and one thing that I stress to clients and anyone that I consult with is have a narrowly targeted job search as much as possible. Don't try to like have 8 different versions of your resume and try to see what sticks, because ultimately then your LinkedIn profile is going to look like a jack of all trades, a master of none. And that's fine if you're a corporate generalist, because that's what GCs are. But if you are a specialist in labor and employment law or specialist in IP, it's really hard to diversify that when everything in your resume is saying IP attorney. And so you really have to be strategic about how you position yourself.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Wendi. That was our last question. And again, I thought you did a fantastic job. You shared a ton of helpful information. I'm going to go implement some of it on in my.
I'm sure people are updating their profiles during the presentation. Right. I really enjoyed speaking to the group. And I know I talk very fast, and I sincerely apologize. It's a lot of information. I could probably do a 3-hour presentation on LinkedIn, but definitely I put out a lot of free resources. So please go to Above the Law, type in Wendi Weiner, read the articles I write, because they are full of a ton of resources. Even my article from this week about quick updates to make to your profile. There's so much that you can do in 1 hour of time for your profile.
Totally. I will share. So this is being recorded. The recording link will be sent out in a couple of weeks, hopefully sooner, but I'll be sure to share all of the various links for your content. And obviously you're very findable on LinkedIn. We tag you in everything. So
yeah.
For that. Thanks everybody for attending. And next week, trademark essentials for in-house counsel on Tuesday, and managing outside counsel for in-house counsel on Thursday. 2 great events. So we're going to wrap it up now. Have a great rest of your day and have a fantastic weekend. And I will catch you next week. And thanks again, Wendi.
Thank you again.